All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today, and also a quick hello to anyone who might be watching this recording later. So, for those who don't know me, let me do a quick intro. I'm Jeffrey Hamada, the founder of the MIT AI Alliance, and this is a global community focused on AI governance, adoption, and real-world implementation discussions. So before we jump into today's topic, I just want to briefly explain the idea behind this Mighty AI Alliance, MAIA, collabs, because it's a little different from the usual format people are used to. So this isn't a webinar, this is not a lecture, and there's definitely no slides. The idea is very simple. There's already an endless amount of AI content online. It's through social media posts, articles, hot takes, people debating tools, and you could scroll for hours and still walk away without much clarity. And I'm trying to introduce this collab to flip that. So instead of consuming content, this is a small group discussion where professionals like us share what we're actually seeing in our lives, in our work, ask questions, and even pressure test ideas together. My role here isn't to teach anything. I'm just here to guide the discussion and keep things moving. So that's the role of a facilitator that anybody could become. The bigger vision I have for Colab is pretty simple. One day it should feel as easy as scrolling through social media, except instead of endless points, you scroll through live discussions. You see something interesting, jump into it, jump into the room, talk to people for about 20, 30 minutes, and then maybe jump into another one later. Less passive content, more real conversations, live discussions. So, thank you all for being part of that experiment today. And so let's get into today's topic. So today's topic for this collab is AI roles in Japan, expectation versus real candidate pool. So a lot of companies want to move fast on AI right now. New roles are appearing everywhere, but those jobs actually reach the market. There's often a gap between what companies expect and the talent that exists today, especially in Japan, where bilingual AI talent is quite limited. You know, bilingual and bicultural is something that Howard always says, and I really appreciate as well. And then AI talent, which is this whole new wave of industry change that's been happening over the last even couple months and continues to happen. So before we jump in, a quick intro to Howie or Howard Ichiro Lim, who's joining us today. He's an executive recruiter specializing in bilingual and bicultural leadership talent across Japan and APAC. He places senior roles in enterprise SaaS, cloud, fintech, telecom, industrial tech companies. So he's constantly seeing what companies are trying to hire for and what candidates actually exist in the market. So I think this is a good place to start. And I'll throw the first question to Howie. And again, this is a small group discussion. So Donald, Adrian, feel free to jump in, ask questions or debate. You know, you're not here just here, but you're also encouraged to participate. But first question I'll ask Howie to kick this off is from what you're seeing in Japan right now, what AI roles are company actually hiring for, and which one are the most hype at the moment?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. And that's a great question. I appreciate the format too. I think it's an excellent way for people to connect on AI and do it in a platform and format that's really constructed for everyone. Um,
I think you hit the mute button by accident.
yeah, so so the real demand, I mean, what roles are being actively hired
Yep.
for is like for example, like generative AI engineers. That would be like LLM integration, chatbots, NLP
Right.
applications, ML engineers, AI software engineers, data scientists, right? And this is where the real demand is. And what you had alluded to earlier is what's being overhyped is like you see on social media a lot is like yeah, AI researchers, traditional Japanese companies, and that's mostly for PR. You're saying, oh, okay, we're looking for AI researchers or chief AI officers or pure prompt engineers. And the fact of the matter is, Japan's AI startup ecosystem is still small. It's very small compared to Silicon Valley or Shenzhen or China, right? Where the majority of AI intellect and AI companies are right now. It's the reality of the AI world. So most of the AI hiring is happening. We're talking about in Japan is at foreign tech companies with Japan offices. So that would be, for example, companies like Google, AWS, Microsoft, Salesforce, large Japanese enterprises who are modernizing. So examples of those types of companies would be like Toyota, Sony, SoftBank, NTT. And then you have a handful of domestic AI startups, companies like Preferred Networks, Sakana AI, Abeja, which is spelled Abeja. And so that's where you're seeing a lot of the domestic AI demand. But an interesting fact, a key stat is Japan's AI market reached 6.6 billion in 2024, and it's projected to hit 35.2 billion by 2033. That's 20.4% compound annual growth rate. So those are some of the interesting stats with regards to AI, what's actually being hired in Japan in
Mm,
AI, and which are actually hyped.
I see. So for those roles in Japan, I'm glad to hear that it's opening up and, appreciate you sharing about it. But for like us on the call, we might ask the question as well, where we're wondering if those require people to be fluent in Japanese, or are there what type of language requirement are there for those companies?
Yeah, I mean, predominantly, you need bilingual ability, and that's just the nature of the beast. But in terms of AI, I mean, if you're good at prompt engineering, if you have a core software development background, particularly in Python,
Mm-hmm.
you know, are pretty fluent in AI and just keep. I think part of being fluent in AI is just keeping up with it. What's happening with development with AI, and then they're not necessarily saying you have to be a high level programmer, right? Because a lot of AI is taking over that. But being understanding, at a basic level how programming works, having some understanding of Python and those types of programming languages. But yeah, you to in order to get a job in AI in Japan, you have to have some Japanese fluency. Otherwise, it's just there's no point in offering those types of careers when they can just outsource that to India or to China, right? So, um, and most of those
Right.
positions in AI, you have to be are client interfacing, or you have to work with colleagues who don't necessarily speak English. So, yeah, you still need the Japanese requirement is still there.
It's Japanese first, and then sometimes it's English as well. Usually it's English as well, but the Japanese is there's it's like native Japanese and business English or fluent in
Right.
both. You don't get. I mean, I'm not seeing roles where it's just English and a bit of Japanese.
I see. I see. That's good to know.
Sorry
Okay,
to jump.
so, oh no, thank you for that. So Howard, you just mentioned a lot of AI technical roles with development backgrounds and so forth, but there's a lot of folks, I myself included, that may not be wanting to go into the AI roles, but not into specifically AI development or very technical roles. And the trend I see outside of Japan, here in Singapore, is that there are a lot of AI governance roles, AI product ambassador roles, compliance related roles, someone that's not going to be actually doing the development work. And some people may say whether, development work, whether it's an AI tool or not, that's for developers, but IT is not, or technology is not made up of just pure developer and technical roles. There's all these, risk management, governance, compliance, regulatory, meeting regulatory requirements, audit, and so forth that are required that I see very much evolving and developing in Singapore and across APAC. How does it look for how does that area look like in Japan?
Yeah, I mean, the companies like Anthropic and OpenAI are hiring. There's a handful of those types of positions, but the requirements for that, uh, let's just get out. I mean, they do. Let's leave the language aside for a second. Is that for non-technical people, having some, whatever your core expertise or domain knowledge is, and if it's legal structure or operations, it's going to translate to AI. But I think at the core, you're going to um, need some knowledge on how to work with AI to some extent. I mean, for example, like no code, low code, vibe coding, those things are now available so that UI or someone else can easily program, a SaaS, package or a mobile app without having any type of coding knowledge to begin with, right? So I think that applies to the AI technology careers as well. I think that if you are a professional, it behooves yourself and you want to get involved in operations or legal or another aspect of AI, it behooves, the onus is on you to go out and do your self-education with what AI is. And at the basic level, learn prompt engineering, right? Because not only are you going to be able to interact with AI better, you're going to, make your life and work easier, right? So I don't know. Prompt engineering, for those of you who don't know, is creating text and inferences and questions that you work with different LLMs like ChatGPT or Claude AI or Grok or all these LLMs, and being able to structure some type of paragraph or questions that give you outputs that are more uh, relevant to what you're trying to seek. For example, if I say, create me a web page with name, questionnaire, and then a reply, and then you send that, versus create me a web page that takes the user's requirements, asks them relevant questions about what they want to ask, and then put that into a data. See, you can just go on and on. That's what I'm saying with regards to AI. I think that everyone who wants to get in AI and wants to get in those types of roles still needs some understanding of how LLMs and AI works. And at the core of that is learning how to prompt better. Pick up a course, go read more about AI, etc. In Japan, those aside from the position or the companies that I mentioned, it's still, like I said, Japan is still way behind other countries in terms of AI adoption and AI positions that are available. So I think we still got a long way to go with regards to Japan.
And I would say I would add on to that, Howie, that the governance is sort of, although it maybe should come before, it's even further behind. I'm seeing a lot of an increasing amount of AI engineer roles of different flavor, AI architect, etc. All the roles that you've mentioned, but there is, and you're right, Jeffrey, in terms of Singapore. Singapore had more governance. I think that's because of the nature of it being an APAC headquarters hub. I think it probably attracts those types of roles definitely earlier than Japan would. Looking at other governance areas, Japan's been a bit behind and has played catch up in finance. Um, I don't see so many AI governance roles. It's more hands-on developer, techie type roles.
Yeah, I think that's sometime a bit of reflection on what regulatory changes are occurring in the different countries.
Japan doesn't want to lead. Japan
Yeah,
typically doesn't sort of. It's not the you know. I've been here 20 odd years. I'm not saying anything out of turn. I don't think it doesn't like to lead in this area. It doesn't want to stick its head up above the parapet before other countries. I think so. I think it will follow what's happening in other countries, and therefore the governance roles will come later, I suspect.
I just have a quick
yeah,
question. Um, Howard, you mentioned earlier that the expected growth is about 24% year over year. How does that benchmark to countries like US, China, or Singapore?
Yeah, I mean, still, I mean, it's still way behind, right?
Do you
So, I
know by
mean,
how much?
I don't have the exact numbers to, sorry to tell you that, but yeah, it's still, I mean, Japan typically is behind the ball in terms of adoption and especially technology adoption, right? There's a lot of their banks and other industries are still on legacy systems, right? They're not on cloud, and that has to do with their, I wouldn't say trust issues, but just the way that they've had a lot of their technology on-prem, and cloud and just latent adoption of a lot of technology. So with regards to AI, I think that's the same thing. I think, Adrian, you hit it right on the ball. I mean, positions like AI governance there's not. It's not at the stage where they have a lot of those positions open or even have that need. Hopefully that'll change, and I hope to see it change. But you're working against you know a beast that has
yeah,
typically, the decision making has typically been, a lot longer, a lot more bureaucratic than other countries, right? So,
yeah. You mentioned a lot of tech companies looking for AI technical roles, right? You mentioned Sakana AI, Google, and so forth. But what about no, the adoption rate you mentioned, they're behind, it's low, but so how is it really like for the non-tech companies, normal regular companies, Japanese companies, foreign companies that are in Tokyo with thousands of employees, they're not a tech solution company. What type of changes or roles are they looking for now?
yeah, I
They're saying,
mean,
"Oh, sorry, Harry, go for
no,
it."
no, go. Yeah,
I,
so
I, I was going to jump in and just like say, like, 2 or 3 years ago, um, what we're talking about now was we were talking about data science roles 2, 3 years ago, and I think there's a lot of data science, data intelligence, data analytics type roles, um, which will have some AI machine learning elements in it. Um, and you see a lot of those roles, and that will be across the non-tech companies. So you might have consumer
Mm,
companies or supply chain, banking, finance, financial services, insurance has a lot of that sort of area. Um, I think that's where there's a lot of roles at the moment in Tokyo, in Japan. Um, Outside of the tech companies that Harry mentioned doing the AI stuff, I don't see a lot of AI roles in these other companies, other industries, these other sectors. It's mainly coming from tech companies, and
mm,
the non-tech companies are still really into data science. Technology usually goes to, obviously it's developed by tech companies, and it's one of the early adopters is the finance industry when new technology comes in. So finance and tech are usually where these sort of newer technology roles come in first.
Yes, I can sort
I
of
see.
speak to this. So my background is I used to be an actuary, which is exactly what you described, a data guy
ah,
at an insurance
okay,
company.
life insurance.
Actually, property and casualty insurance,
Okay,
so car
okay,
insurance.
right on.
But the main reason why insurance companies are so behind when it comes to adapting new technology is regulation. there's this thing called a filing. In order for an insurance company to make a pricing schema, they have to be approved by usually the federal or provincial government, depending on which country you're in. And in order for them to approve you, you have to be able to explain why your model spit out these prices for these demographics. And you have to prove that there's no bias. There's several laws that are different in Canada versus the US, for example. In Canada, you can't use credit score as a way to price car insurance. It's illegal. And so all of these government restrictions keep the actuaries working on basic statistical models like linear regression, where they're not allowed to try using LLMs to price insurance. And it's because of the government restrictions. So they have to be put within this, I guess, limitation. And until these restrictions get lifted, they're kind of forced to be within this space. And so the actuarial space has changed a lot in North America, where they're now more focusing on data science. So a lot of actuaries are becoming data scientists. But I find that in Japan, a lot of actuaries I meet are still using just Excel, sometimes even pen and paper math to solve some of these problems.
Abacus, threading.
Wow.
That's
Well,
very interesting. Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of these, because of AI, it's both ha these companies wanting to, I guess, before there was a barrier or a hurdle for them to develop their own solutions and tools within the company, right? They need to hire development resource and so forth, have an IT department. Now with AI and how Howard mentioned vibe coding and people learning how to prompt better and having develop, AI tools develop applications for you or tools for you, automation and so forth. I think we'll start to see just non-tech companies try to implement this, but that's when, you know, the governance and the controls and the framework needs to be in place. I think there's a big difference, me being in Singapore and seeing MAS, the regulatory here, publish a, AI, agentic AI governance framework paper and a guideline versus Japan just having a discussion paper. It's not even giving guidance. It's just, a discussion to paper versus there's other countries. I think India came out, RBI came out with a white paper. Korea came out with actually a law, an act to in regards to responsible AI implementation. And so you see these companies or countries starting to move towards. It's not about technology solutions, that's there. AI is going to provide many companies with that leverage, but then the important thing is that things are done in a controlled manner. And so the worst thing you could have is a company with no IT background, they outsource everything until now, suddenly realize, hey, I could vibe code and create all this stuff. And they do, and they don't have that control, governance, monitoring, the checks and balances, and so forth in place. And they create something that is actually self-destructive for the company. I was just hearing a friend who developed a little quick tool for his company that manages email. And that email system went berserk over the holidays where it was just starting to reply and reply to itself, reply all to itself, and then reply to anybody that says don't reply or stop replying all. And next thing you know, you got the whole system crashing because there's tens of thousands of email every minute or so. And so that was caused by this loophole because you don't have a proper, testing and so forth. So I think the governance aspect is very important, and I hope that people in Japan, when they or the companies in Japan, when they start to catch up and try to implement all this stuff, that they don't have to learn the hard way and suddenly say, we need someone to take care of the governance and
Right.
start hiring with urgency at a late
Right.
stage.
Jeff, I'm sorry, I got to sign off. I got an emergency from my children here, so
Okay, well,
sorry about
it's
that.
fine. You're not on the stage or anything,
Okay,
but thanks
right,
for
right.
joining. Yeah, we'll
Okay,
catch up
thank
again
you.
later. Thank you.
Okay, I
Bye,
look forward
Howard.
to your future ones. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
Okay.
you.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Howard.
It's a shame he's gone because I wanted to ask him one question, Harry,
Me
one
too.
question, which was, and this maybe your sort of lines about this call and this chat, I wanted to ask about if he's worked roles, AI roles, and with clients in Japan, and how much the clients really understand what they want. Because how and this, I think this comes to the essence of what you've what this call was supposed to be sort of about. You know, I feel not specifically about AI roles, but actually when recruiters are talking, I'm glad that you're not a recruiter, Donald, because I'm not going to offend you. When I am a recruiter, so I'm talking about my industry, I can be as blunt um, there is not much knowledge of um, technology from HR, and the I don't know how it is in the US. I know Singapore is very strict, but I suspect that outside of Japan, recruiters are talking to hiring managers more than they are in Japan,
I
and so you can't you can't effectively um, challenge or question. It's just here's the job description, go and find them.
I love
And
everything you just said because listen to this. My background is in actuarial science and then data science, and
right,
everything you said is 100% true. So
right.
as of 2 months ago, I decided to become a recruiter for actuaries and data scientists. So now I am that person that you described who doesn't
Right. Okay. Well,
exist.
yeah. Take some tips here.
There you
Challenge
go.
the question and ask why, because a lot of the time, um, Jeffrey, the default is native Japanese business English. And I don't think recruiters ask enough. Why do they need both languages? How do they use both languages? Because there's a hell of a lot of times when you've got a developer role
Mhm.
and you know conversational Japanese is fine because it's so katakana language and
That's true.
you're talking internally to a stakeholder or to your boss, and sometimes they speak a bit of English, so you don't need to have native Japanese for a
I
lot of
have.
highly technical roles. Now there are roles
Yeah.
when I was working certain certain data science roles that when it was early days,
Mhm.
um, where you're changing the company. You're an influencer, an evangelist internally, and you got to be talking Japanese. So they were challenging roles because you're talking about a new cutting edge technology. There's not a lot of that talent about,
Hmm.
and you want it to be native Japanese.
Mhm.
And a lot of the time, the new technology will go to is in India first, and it's in China first, and it's in the US first. It's not in Japan first.
Yeah.
They are a slightly late adopter, a year behind or whatever. So if you're looking for someone, and then they'll throw in a spurious number of years of experience that they're
Yeah.
looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a list of questions here, and other than the first question, I had 10 questions here. I covered one today. So no, but I had that question very similar to yours, about the actual gap between what's out there and what
Mm,
companies think they want. But there's a lot of companies that don't know what they want. I was actually um, approached by a company saying they really need someone, something with AI, but they're not able to write the job description. They're still trying to figure it out, and they're still in touch with me, but they still haven't figured it out.
now,
Yeah.
now, now, in that sort of situation, I'm not an AI recruiter specialist. I'm not a data science recruiter specialist. I'm not so hands-on these days, but the sort of tech recruiters that I've worked with over the last sort of 5, 10 years, um, there's not so many of them that I've come into contact with that have a really deep knowledge of technology. So they know some of the jargon and some of the top
Yeah.
line things. This role's got to have this. Um, so again, it's harder for that person to go, actually, you don't want an AI engineer, you want a data scientist or you want a data analyst. When the client doesn't really know what they want,
Yeah.
they should have a recruiter that gives them really strong
Yeah. Advice.
Let
Right.
me
Direction.
jump in here. I love these questions because I have about 2 months of experience and this is what I've seen so far.
Mm,
So, as for your first question on why the Japanese, now this is from 2 months worth of data, so of course there's probably people with different answers, but from what I've seen, most roles that are described as data scientist or software engineer or something like this. No, there's exceptions, of course, but on average, they are customer facing, right? So a traditional data scientist in America or Canada or maybe even China, their role would be to do research and development. You get a data set, you have to find a predictive model that has a high enough accuracy, and then you can use that to make decisions in the future. That's a traditional data scientist. In Japan, it's very different. Japan is a business hub, it's not an IT hub, and so their main focus is to sell. So their data scientists are there to present the product and the technical functionality of it to the business stakeholders. So for the most part, you need an IT
internal.
background, but the business is more important.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see that.
So definitely Japanese and here Japanese. It's like saying I want a job in America and I don't speak English.
Hmm. Right.
There's very few
Makes sense.
roles where they're gonna, and a lot of people don't get that. So
Makes
Exactly.
sense. Yeah.
you know,
Okay, well, we're almost at time. Again, these are meant to be exactly what we just experienced today, a short, quick 30, 40-minute discussion. The thing is, I'm sure this conversation sparked a lot more discussion, ideas, topics, questions. And so I'm hoping my vision that I have is each collab sparks more collabs. And as you can tell, facilitating is like just the first, 30 seconds to 90 seconds where you're just kind of kicking things off. After that, everybody is that's interested in the topic is on the call, could ask questions and have these types of discussions, and anybody could branch off into other collab groups. And hoping that like this was worth 1,000 posts. Me going through 1,000 posts, which I probably won't even remember, but this was a lot more
mm,
valuable, insightful, deep, and this is something a lot of things here is, I'm gonna remember, and the connection that I'm making, and I'm enjoying this rather than scrolling through half asleep. This is a lot more fun for me, interactive. So thank you both and Howie who had to leave very much for participating. I'm going to set up a lot more of these, but I'm hoping that this will become a more active community where others will be interested in either joining or saying, you know what, I really want to talk about this question. I want it at my time that I schedule and I want to run it. Easy to set up another collab within the environment. So with that, it's right at time. So I'm going to go ahead and end it, but hope to catch up with you again soon again. Or good, have a
thanks
good
very
day. Yeah.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.